Frank! What the hell are you doing? That's my new phone!
Don't come near! I see the detonator inside! It's a trap!
Don't answer it! Old Janitor threw the phone into the fountain. It exploded underwater. Doc Morrison received courier delivery containing new smartphone at Reaper's clubhouse. Unaware Iron Wolves operative had rigged device with pressure-sensitive explosive triggered by answering incoming call. 70-year-old janitor Frank Torres recognized exposed wiring pattern from 40-year bomb squad career, grabbed phone throwing it into courtyard fountain seconds before it rang, watched underwater explosion-proof assassination attempt through communication device weapon. Sometimes old janitors see bombs delivery drivers miss. Sometimes exploding phones reveal threats security never detects. Day 1, Tuesday, 3:30 p.m. Reaper's MC Clubhouse. Doc Morrison signed for courier package, new smartphone to replace his cracked device, delivery he'd been expecting all week. Kane that morning. Doc, you ordered that phone from legitimate retailer? Iron Wolves have been escalating. They're creative with retaliation. Doc had shrugged. Ordered direct from manufacturer's website. What could go wrong? 3:32 p.m. Iron Wolves operative Marcus Webb had intercepted Doc's phone shipment at distribution center 2 days prior. Opened package, removed legitimate phone, replaced with identical model rigged with C4 explosive wired to pressure-sensitive trigger activated by answering incoming call. The phone looked perfect. Authentic packaging, sealed box, correct model number, but beneath the screen, 2 grams of C4 connected to trigger mechanism that would detonate when call was answered, creating shrapnel from phone components lethal within 3-foot radius. Frank Torres, 70, clubhouse janitor for 8 years, mopped common area floor, decades of muscle memory from custodial work, sharp eyes that had once diffused bombs, now identifying maintenance issues. Frank's former partner Luis had called last month after years of infrequent contact. Hermano, ran into your son at grocery. He says you're janitor now. Frank, you were best bomb tech LAPD ever had. How'd we get old enough for this? Frank had deflected. Pension doesn't cover LA rent, hermano. Portland cheaper, janitorial work available, keeps me busy. Luis had heard the unspoken pain. 40 years expertise reduced to mopping floors. 3:34 p.m. Frank watched Doc open the package, remove phone, power it on. Something caught Frank's eye. Tiny gap where screen met frame, barely visible. And through that gap, red wire. Wrong gauge for phone battery connection. Dios mio, that's date cord. Doc's new phone rang. Incoming call from unknown number. Don't answer it. Frank dropped his mop, lunged across room, grabbed phone from Doc's hand, threw it into courtyard fountain 20 feet away. Phone hit water just as Doc would have pressed answer. Underwater explosion, muffled but powerful. Water erupted upward, fountain cracked, phone components and C4 residue floating in destroyed basin. Everyone stared at the destroyed fountain, water still churning from blast pressure. Bomb! Frank's voice steady despite adrenaline. C4 explosive, approximately 2 grams, wired to pressure trigger activated by answering call. I saw red wire through screen gap. Wrong gauge, wrong color for phone components. That's detonator cord. How did you know? I was LAPD bomb squad 40 years. Retired 2015. I know explosive wiring. That phone was weapon, not communication device. Doc stared at Frank. Quiet janitor who'd cleaned their clubhouse 8 years, barely spoke beyond good morning, had just saved his life. Portland Police Bomb Squad arrived within 20 minutes. Commander Sarah Chen examined residue. C4 confirmed. Pressure-sensitive trigger. Answering incoming call would complete circuit, detonate explosive. Shrapnel from phone components would be lethal within 3 feet. Mr. Torres, your identification prevented fatality. Mr. Torres identified this visually. Detective Chen interviewed Frank. You saw wiring through phone case? Through screen gap. Tiny opening where frame didn't seal perfectly. Amateur modification. Professional bomb makers seal better. I saw red wire, recognized gauge and positioning. 40 years bomb squad. You learn to see what others miss. Investigation revealed. Doc's order intercepted at distribution center. Legitimate phone replaced with weaponized replica. Repackaged. Delivered. Iron Wolves retaliation, Chen confirmed. Doc testified in their weapons trafficking case. Marcus Webb has bomb-making history. Kane asked Frank privately, "Why didn't you tell us you were bomb squad?" Frank continued mopping fountain debris. "You hired janitor, not bomb technician. I've been retired 10 years. Didn't seem relevant. Didn't seem, Frank, you just identified IED in 3 seconds and saved Doc's life." "I saw wire, reacted, that's all." "That's not all. You maintained bomb squad situational awareness despite being 70-year-old janitor." "How?" Frank was quiet. 40 years LAPD bomb squad, you don't stop scanning rooms for threats. Retirement doesn't turn off that instinct. PTSD, Luis calls it. I call it survival skill that won't quit. Kane pressed, "Frank, who knows your former bomb squad?" "Nobody here except you now. I'm just janitor. Old Mexican guy who mops floors. People overlook you when you're custodian." But Chen disagreed. "If Iron Wolves surveil this clubhouse, they've seen Frank interfere. Bomb makers don't like people who disrupt their work. He's target now. Then he needs protection. Kane, he's 70-year-old janitor with PTSD from 40 years defusing bombs. Protecting him means confronting trauma he's spent 10 years avoiding." Mini cliffhanger. Wednesday morning, Marcus Webb arrested at 6 hours a.m. His attorney filed motion by 10 mile a.m. Arrest based on testimony of 70-year-old janitor claiming to identify explosives by seeing wire through screen gap. Mr. Torres's age, his decade-long removal from bomb squad work, and his documented PTSD make his testimony unreliable. No credible bomb technician identifies C4 through phone case from across room. Frank read the motion in break room, understanding. They'd weaponize his age, his retirement, his PTSD, his current job against him. Day 2. Wednesday. Federal Prosecutor Jennifer Martinez reviewed case. "Mr. Torres, your testimony is crucial, but defense will attack your credibility, your age, your retirement, your current employment as janitor, your PTSD. Can you handle that?" Frank's English carried slight accent despite 50 years in America. "Ms. Martinez, I defused bombs 40 years. Saw colleagues die, saw civilians saved, saw devices I'll never forget. Retired because my hands started shaking. Age, not incompetence. Became janitor because pension isn't enough and I need work. 40 years of expertise doesn't disappear because I mop floors now." Kane added, "Frank identified explosive device in 3 seconds using visual identification. Most bomb techs would need equipment to confirm. That's not diminished capacity. That's retained expertise." Martinez nodded. "We'll prove that. Frank, willing to demonstrate your visual identification capability under observation?" "Yes, I know bombs." Doc asked privately. "Frank, what made you retire?" Frank's hands, slightly tremulous at rest, steady under purpose, gripped his mop handle. joined LAPD Bomb Squad 1975, 25 years old. My father had been LAPD patrol, died in shootout when I was 19. I wanted to honor him, chose Bomb Squad because someone had to do it. 40 years, defused hundreds of devices, gang bombs, terrorist threats, improvised explosives, military ordnance, lost 3 partners, 2 to blasts, 1 to PTSD suicide. Saw devices that still visit my nightmares. Voice dropping. 2012. Called to defuse pipe bomb in elementary school. Some student's revenge plan. I cleared the device. Textbook procedure, no mistakes. But my hands shook the entire time. 67 years old, hands trembling while cutting wires on bomb in school with 300 kids evacuated outside. Completed the job, bomb rendered safe. But my captain noticed the tremor, ordered medical evaluation. Doctor said, essential tremor, age-related, not currently disqualifying, but degenerative. In 5 years, you won't be able to do precision wire work. 2015, I retired at 70, not because I couldn't do the work yet, but because I knew where tremor was heading. Better to leave while I'm still competent than wait until I cause disaster. Lost my identity. 40 years, I was Frank Torres, bomb technician. Suddenly, I was Frank Torres, retiree with trembling hands. Pension paid bills barely, needed work. Became janitor here 2017. You hired old Mexican guy to mop floors. Didn't ask about my past. That was fine. Being overlooked was easier than constant reminders I'm former expert, not current one. Tuesday, I saw that wire. 40 years of training activated. Grabbed phone, threw it before my brain registered fear. Saved Doc. Now everyone knows I'm not just janitor. That visibility, being seen again as what I was, that's harder than being dismissed. Doc understood. Frank had spent 8 years avoiding painful comparisons to who he'd been. Day 3, Thursday. Frank underwent testing at Portland Police Bomb Squad facility. Commander Chen administering visual identification challenge. Mr. Torres, 15 devices. 10 are inert replicas. 5 are live explosives rendered safe. Identify which are real from visual inspection only. No tools, no physical contact. Results. 15 correct identifications. Frank's eyes scanned each device, identifying this one, det cord positioning wrong, replica. This one, real, C4, mercury switch. This one, real, ANFO mixture, electronic timer. Chen was impressed. Mr. Torres, your visual analysis is extraordinary. Most active duty techs scored 12-15 on this test. Marcus Webb's attorney attacked. These tests were conducted in controlled facility with proper lighting. Mr. Torres claims he identified explosive device across clubhouse room through phone case while mopping floor. His alleged expertise cannot be validated under actual conditions. Friday morning, Luis Mendoza, Frank's former bomb squad partner, called. Hermano, I saw the news. They're trying to discredit you in court? Frank answered, they're saying I'm too old, too removed, too traumatized to know what I saw. Luis, I'm testifying. Bomb squad brotherhood doesn't expire. We're not letting them destroy your credibility. Federal courthouse. Commander Chen testified about Frank's demonstration. Webb's attorney attacked. Mr. Torres is 70-year-old janitor who retired from bomb squad 10 years ago. How can this court trust his testimony? Because he correctly identified 15 explosive devices with 100% accuracy using only visual inspection. His age represents 40 years of expertise. His retirement doesn't erase knowledge. But his essential tremor, his PTSD, his current employment mopping floors, these don't affect reliability. His tremor affects fine motor skills, not visual identification. His PTSD means he's hyper-vigilant about explosives, exactly what made him notice the device. His employment is irrelevant to his expertise. Judge Morrison asked Frank to speak. Frank stood, slowly, hands trembling slightly, 70 years visible, but voice clear. Your Honor, I defused bombs 40 years. Started 1975, retired 2015, not because I couldn't do the work, but because essential tremor was progressing. I left while I was still competent, not after I caused disaster. 10 years retired, I'm janitor at Reaper's Clubhouse. People see old Mexican man mopping floors. They don't see bomb technician who saved lives for 4 decades. That's fine. Being underestimated is easier than being compared to who I was. Voice strengthening. Tuesday, I saw red wire through phone screen gap. Recognized date cord immediately. Gauge, color, positioning. 40 years of training doesn't disappear because I mop floors now. I grabbed phone, threw it in fountain. Underwater explosion proved I was right. Defense says I'm too old, too retired, too traumatized to know explosives. I say, bombs don't care how old you are. They care if you recognize them. I recognized one. That's verification defense cannot argue. Directly to Webb's attorney. You're trying to convince court that janitor can't be bomb expert, but expertise isn't job title. It's knowledge acquired over lifetime. I spent 40 years learning to see bombs. Retirement didn't erase that. Neither did 10 years mopping floors. I'm 70. My hands shake. I clean buildings for living. I'm also the only person in that clubhouse Tuesday who recognized explosive device before it killed someone. If that's unreliable, then this court values job titles over lives saved. Courtroom silent. Luis Mendoza testified immediately after, I'm Luis Mendoza, retired LAPD bomb squad, Frank Torres' partner 15 years. Frank was best technician I ever worked with. 40 years, 0 failures. Every device he identified, every wire he cut. Perfect record. 2012, elementary school pipe bomb. Frank's hand shook entire time he defused it. I watched from safe distance, terrified. But Frank completed procedure flawlessly. Bomb rendered safe. 300 kids went home alive. Voice emotional. After that call, Frank told me, Luis, my hands are betraying me. Essential tremor. I need to retire before I cause disaster. He retired 2015 not because he'd failed, but because he refused to risk failing. That's integrity most people don't have. Frank became janitor because pension doesn't cover life in Los Angeles. He moved to Portland for cheaper living, took custodial work because it was available. But his bomb squad expertise didn't retire. It just became dismissed because people don't expect janitors to be experts. Direct to attorney. Defense wants to convince you Frank's retirement and current job make him unreliable. That's insulting. Frank identified explosive device Tuesday using expertise 40 years developed. His janitor uniform doesn't erase his bomb squad knowledge. His trembling hands don't erase his visual identification capability. His age doesn't erase his perfect record. To Frank, in Spanish, then English. Hermano, eres y siempre serás el mejor. You are and always will be the best. They can't take that from you. Frank's eyes filled. Luis crossed to embrace him. Judge ruled, Mr. Torres' testimony is admissible. Demonstrated expertise outweighs speculative concerns. Trial proceeds immediately. Jury heard testimony, deliberated 3 hours. Verdict, guilty. Marcus Webb, 40 years federal prison. Frank testified through translator for technical bomb terms. Tuesday, 3:34 p.m., I was mopping common area approximately 12 feet from where Doc opened package. I noticed phone had small gap where screen met frame, manufacturing defect or modification. Through that gap, I saw red wire. Red wire was wrong. Phone batteries use black or blue wiring. Red wire, that gauge, that positioning, that's detonator cord. I recognized it immediately from 40 years seeing explosive devices. How certain were you? Certain enough to grab phone from Doc's hand and throw it in fountain. If I'm wrong, I damage phone and look foolish. If I'm right, I save life. I was right. Martinez presented evidence. Webb purchased C4 components, pressure switches, had electronics expertise, had motive. Brother imprisoned by Reaper's testimony. Verdict, guilty. Outside courthouse, Doc and Kane flanked Frank. Frank, you saved my life using expertise I didn't know you had because I never asked. I'm sorry. You hired janitor. I was janitor. That's not wrong. It's incomplete. You're bomb expert who happens to mop floors, not janitor who happens to know bombs. There's difference. That evening, Frank sat in clubhouse break room after shift. Space he'd cleaned nightly for 8 years. Refrigerator hummed familiar bassline. Vending machine buzzed intermittently. Heating system ticked softly. Evening traffic sounds filtered through windows. But tonight, sounds shifted. Refrigerator hum became ticking timer from bomb he'd defused in 1998. Vending buzz became electric circuit closing. Heating ticks became countdown mechanism. His hands trembled worse than usual, not from essential tremor, from adrenaline flashback. Breath coming in gasps. Courtroom testimony had forced him to relive 40 years of bombs. Partners lost. Close calls survived. The smell shifted too. Cleaning solvent became explosive residue. Coffee became cordite. Air freshener became mercury vapor from switches. Doc found him there, sitting in darkness among supplies. Frank, you're safe. You're here. I testified about Tuesday, about the bomb. First time I've talked publicly about bomb squad work in 10 years. All the memories came back. Every device, every partner lost, every school I cleared, every timer I beat. Doc sat beside him. Frank, you saved my life Tuesday using everything 40 years taught you. That's not weakness. That's proof expertise survives retirement, survives age, survives tremor. You're still the expert you always were. Slowly, breathing steadied. Timer ticking became heating system. Circuit buzz became vending machine. Explosive residue became cleaning solvent. I saved life and still can't save myself from 40 years of memories. You don't save yourself from memories. You survive despite them. You did that Tuesday. Frank's testimony exposed Iron Wolf's explosive manufacturing network. 6 operatives arrested. Federal Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives hired Frank as consultant, $120,000 annually, recognizing retired expertise. Portland Police offered Frank bomb squad trainer position. Reapers promoted Frank to security consultant, $75,000 annually, plus housing. 3 years later, Frank Torres, 73, stood at ATF training facility, teaching visual explosive identification to new bomb technicians, Luis Mendoza co-instructing beside him. He remembered 6 months after trial, accepting ATF consultant position despite trembling hands. Luis joining immediately. Hermano, we taught rookies for 20 years at LAPD. We'll do it again. Together, they developed Torres Mendoza Visual Protocol, teaching bomb techs to identify threats without physical contact, perfect for field conditions where touching device is too dangerous. Today, their protocol trained 500-plus technicians nationwide. Luis handled technical terminology. Frank demonstrated visual identification. Partnership that had defused bombs 20 years now trained next generation to do same. Reporter asked, "You were janitor 3 years ago. Today you're federal consultant. How?" I threw phone and fountain and chose intervention over silence. 40 years bomb squad taught me. Recognize threat, act immediately, save lives. Retirement didn't erase that. Neither did mopping floors. Sometimes old janitors see bombs delivery drivers miss. Sometimes exploding phones reveal threats security never detects. Expertise survives everything. Age, retirement, trembling hands. Society just needs to recognize it.